My children are not on the autism spectrum because I took Tylenol while pregnant. They're on the autism spectrum because I, a person who will wear only one type of shoe and can't eat food that is too potato-y, had babies with a man who has an encyclopedic knowledge of European aristocracy, but a limited ability to process social cues. If you are on the autism spectrum, which is highly genetic, then you are more likely to experience pain during a pregnancy. Tylenol is the safest painkiller to take when pregnant, so that's the one you take. Therefore, the autism causes the Tylenol consumption, not the other way around. Homeless kitten found to be neither male nor female in veterinary first. I was curious about this, not because I was surprised the cat was neither male nor female, but because I was surprised this is a first. I mean, hermaphrodite cats exist. Anytime an apparently male cat is tortie or calico, for example, that's a hermaphrodite animal, probably XXY. Turns out though, that this kitty is very rare. They have no external reproductive organs, and vets can find no evidence of internal reproductive organs either. So yeah, fair enough. I've literally never heard of an animal being born like that. Isn't nature something? New Spotify feature is doxing. I checked Spotify today and noticed a new feature that lets you DM people. I tried it and saw a list of suggested friends. Most I recognized, but a few I couldn't place. Based on the music shared, it shows every single link you've ever sent that someone has opened, as long as they have a Spotify account. I realized some of these were people I know from Discord. I don't reveal my real identity on Discord, but occasionally share music in servers or while gaming. I've always kept Discord anonymous, and Spotify has never been a social app for me, but now it seems that anyone I've sent a Spotify link to, if they also have an account, can potentially find me, which means they could discover my full name and other account info. It's a little alarming. Just something to keep in mind if you share music in servers or subreddits and want to maintain your privacy. A while back, my pharmacist saw my dead name on my profile and accidentally called it out. He corrected and deleted my dead name from the system, so only my preferred name shows up now. There was a crowd of people behind me, so as he hands over the pills, he apologized. An equal tone and volume as when he called my dead name, and lied, saying it's been a long day and he didn't mean to call out his own name. I quietly told him it was fine and he didn't need to do that for my sake. His response: no, it's my name now. I went to the pharmacist yesterday. His name tag is my dead name. He informed me he's immigrating, and in the process, he's changed his first name to my dead name to have an English-sounding name. That's why he's now able to get a reprint of his name tag to be my dead name, and repeated with the intense seriousness of someone who is going to die on this hill: it's mine now, not yours. I'm taking. His tone indicated that decision is final. Bro literally dead named me once and is committed to flat out stealing my dead name. It's his now, legally, officially. I overheard his coworkers call him by the name. My mom just came to me and ranted about how everyone is making this Facebook status that says raising teenagers is like nailing jello to a tree. She was so baffled by this because she said, "You were pretty easy to raise as teenagers. All you did was sleep and eat." So to prove some point, she's going to nail a small cup of jello to a tree. She's so pleased with herself. Parents are weird. Yeah, but this is about as accurate as it gets. You say nail jello to a tree and most people think jello all by itself. But if you put any actual thought into what you're doing and then give it just a little support, well gosh, look what happens. Please tell your mom, good job. You guys are all aware that they trained people for those civil rights protests, right? That the people doing sit-ins had to be trained to keep their cool as people screamed invectives and poured drinks on them. It was a very organized operation. One of the greatest lies that recent American history has perpetuated is the idea that Rosa Parks was just a tired black woman who wanted to sit down on the bus, and not a motivated activist who trained with other civil rights luminaries and very intentionally got on that bus specifically to get arrested about it. Can you think of a reason why they might not want you to know that the people staging sit-ins and getting arrested for sitting on the bus were trained and organized? Sincerely delighted to discover 45 minutes into this nearly wordless 3-hour documentary about French monks who take vows of silence, that among the reasons they can talk is to make sure the monastery cats know when it's mealtime by making little kitty calling noises at them. Groening proposed the idea for the film to the monks in 1984, but the Carthusians said they wanted time to think about it. They responded to him 16 years later to say they were willing to permit him to shoot the movie if he was still interested. Into great silence. Carthusian monks themselves loved the film. Double your salary by being employed for the same job twice. My company is always advertising for more people in my position, hiring any that are good enough and accept the pay. I decide to apply for the same job but as my husband, who pretended to be me on the Zoom interview, with me telling him what to say. He got the job. I submit half my work as him and the other half as myself. Been smooth sailing for 6 months so far. Funnily enough, he also gets paid $5,000 more than me. Not gender discrimination. I'm also a man. My boss is just a penny-pinching jerk and says they can't afford to give me a raise. 10D chess. The OceanGate rabbit hole is unfriggin' paralleled. What do you mean they left that thing outside in the snow in Canada for the entire friggin' winter? Of course it imploded literally the next time they put it in the water. Holy crap! There's a video now of the moment it imploded where the topside ship hears this incredibly loud bang from outside the ship, i.e. not on monitoring or microphones, and that's bad in itself. But the only reason the people topside didn't freak out more was because the exact same thing had happened 8 dives earlier on dive 80, and they also knew using their own monitoring systems that the bang they heard had frigged the hole in some capacity, and then they still left it outside for the entire winter. They tested the tin can carbon fiber hole with people inside it, not even OceanGate people, regular civilians, after their first test model had imploded. Stockton Rush described the terrifying popping and cracking sounds as the hole being seasoned by the carbon fibers, like a cast iron pan, like a wok, seasoned. Mules are like horses with the self-destruct button removed. Do you mean the self-preservation instinct removed? No, absolutely not. It's the opposite. Mules will straight up refuse to do things if they don't have the confidence that they can complete it. This is where the term stubborn as a mule comes from. A horse will attempt defeat and break its weak little ankles and roll over and kill its rider. Mules do it because they know they can. That's also why mules and donkeys are used as mounts around the Grand Canyon. They're both sure-footed and stubborn and will refuse to do things that put them and the rider in danger, when a horse would listen to the call of the void and just do it. Donkeys are less domesticated than mules, less dependent on humans, and more self-assured. This is why they can be harder to train, but also why they have such great self-preservation skills. A mule inherits those traits from its father. The only downside to talking to small children like they're normal people and treating them like normal people, as per my mom, is that as they develop into bigger children, they are viscerally aware of every single moment in which they're pandered to like stupid little accessories, as per my dad, my teacher, the special ed aide, and every adult in my middle school. And you end up getting a lot of phone calls from people reporting your kid for checks notes, undermining authority, disrupting the classroom environment, disobeying elder peers, and unionizing the grade 11 gym class with intent to incite a mutiny, as per me. And you end up with a grown adult who will absolutely encourage and enable other people's children to frig the system. It turns out that actually standing by men and women are not inherently very different is a reliable way to bother absolutely everyone. Left or right, cis or trans, feminist or misogynist, all cling to the binary for dear life. Though all children have a lot of variation in personality, that one year I did help with a woodwork camp with prepubescent children, I did notice an obvious trend when it came to hammering nails. Though about equal amounts of boys and girls did just fine, the ones who struggled did it differently. The girls were hitting too lightly and boys were hitting really imprecisely. I knew they were too young for hormones to be involved with strength, so I figured it to be conditioning. I thought back to the broken toy horses and dollhouses versus the often stepped on toy dinosaurs of my childhood, and considered the relative durability of the toys they were probably given and what play styles were probably encouraged. The advice that helped the girls struggling was hit it like you're trying to break it, and for the struggling boys was slow down and focus. Though it is in no way universal, a lot of behaviors are reinforced or punished in us differently depending on what gender we're assigned. I feel like that causes most of the differences, not some inherent brain chemistry. My roommate, the one who hates septum piercings so much they make her gag, thinks my art is the most disgusting and ugly crap on the planet. And every time I announce that I've sold a piece or gone into a show, she makes the kind of facial expression you'd expect of someone eating chili at a live autopsy, and says, "I'm glad you're having fun." She doesn't consume any media besides sitcoms and reality TV, and doesn't have social media besides Facebook. So when I come to her with something even remotely bizarre, she just has absolutely nothing to compare it to. Like, when I show her something mildly weird that I made like this, she's just fully convinced that I personally invented the concept of body horror all on my own, specifically to make her life a living hell. She thinks I'm the only person like this alive. It's so funny. I love her. Hey man, the leaves, they fell off your tree. They're incredibly biodegradable and will be gone by the end of winter, so you better hurry up and rake them into plastic bags. It's not just that the leaves will break down on their own and enrich the soil while they're at it. During the winter, all sorts of insects use leaf litter for shelter, and they're the first food available to larvae in early spring. Leaves also insulate the plants under them during the winter, which is important if you're in an area prone to frost heaving. One of the best things you can do for native pollinators in your area is leave the leaves. My mom stopped raking her leaves when she found out about this, but her neighbor used his leaf blower to clear out her yard the first year she decided to try, so she started posting a leave the leaves sign in the yard each year with an explanation about why it's good, and 2 winters later only one house still rakes their lawn each year. Remember in 2019 when that guy stole the Alaska Airlines plane, and the airline officials came out after and said this is a tragedy and an egregious security lapse, but can you believe that guy pulled off a barrel roll in a Q400? An eyewitness report came over the radio from one of the intercepting F-15s, whose pilot referred to the Q400 as Track of Interest 1 or TOI-1. His radio transmission sounds somewhat awestruck. TOI-1 just completed a barrel roll. The other F-15 pilot responded, sounding professional but incredulous. Confirm he did a barrel roll? Affirm, the first pilot said, allowing a chuckle of disbelief. He cleared the surface of the water by approximately 10 feet. For context, this is a Q400. California wildlife expert. If a sea turtle comes within 10 feet of me, I'm required by law to toaster bath myself ceremonially. Louisiana wildlife expert. As alligator climbs on a boat, we aren't supposed to give them more than a bag of marshmallows a day. I know a scuba diver in California who works on a project where he goes out with a hammer and kills as many sea urchins as he can in one specific area because their populations are too high and they're destroying the kelp forest. So, yeah, it's not as clear-cut as you might think. Was reading a 1950s detective book that jokingly referenced the fact it was illegal to use profanity over the telephone. My initial reaction was kinda wild, but makes sense given the history of overreaching obscenity laws. Long story short, I fell down a rabbit hole and it turns out public profanity is currently illegal in some US states. Apparently, these laws were pushed by telephone companies on certain local/state levels. So nice to know corporate interests taking away your right to use free speech on your phone is actually a heritage thing. Tomorrow, we'll be having 9/11 RP night starting at the usual time for movies. We'll be watching full TV coverage of 9/11 and pretending this is the first time we've seen it. You must be in character in the VC. There be some specific events in this Discord servers. I'm a survivor of the attacks who lived 4 blocks east of the World Trade Center. I lost my home that day, spent years homeless and destitute, and I carry a Zadroga Act diagnosis of 9/11 connected PTSD. If anyone who's doing this RP needs character coaching, or if you need help with authentic scenarios, I'm available for consulting services at reasonable rates. Learning that 1, there's a thing called the Gen Z stare, 2, it ticks people off, and 3, it's just underpaid service workers staring at someone until they follow a simple instruction has been interesting. For example, the card reader says remove card. The customer goes, it says remove card. What do I do? Then some underpaid 20-year-old just stares at whatever twat just asked that question. Apparently, that's devastating for baby boomers and Gen Xers, and they're complaining about it. Retail workers should be allowed to jump the counter and kill customers. Got reminded again of my old coworker who was a massive misogynist, but also trans inclusive. Told me he believed trans women are indeed women because only women would be stupid enough to want to be women. I wonder what he's doing now. He also aggressively corrected himself whenever he accidentally misgendered a trans guy we knew, because there's already more women than men in the world. The more numbers we steal from them, the better. Did that even when the trans guy wasn't around. I need to point out that he was completely serious, by the way. This man had no sense of humor if he tried. I do like that Minecraft horror mods exist because they all seem to be creepy monster attacks you and makes loud noise, because I am 100% sure that the scariest crap you could do in Minecraft is make the game function slightly wrong. People have been playing Minecraft religiously for over a decade now. At this point, exploiting this game's mechanics are muscle memory by now. Literally all it would take is one slight tweak chosen at random from a list to induce a House of Leaves type breakdown. Wait, this is just what it feels like to play Bedrock. Photograph from 1946, when there was no ultrasound and everything was a surprise. My father, who's an identical twin, has 2 older sisters who are also identical twins. My grandfather's favorite way to tell the story was that in 1956, when he was awaiting the arrival of Child, the doctor, who in the small town where we're from had delivered my aunts a few years earlier, came to the lounge, lit a cigarette, and took a seat next to him. "Clifford, how are you?" the doctor greeted. "I'm all right. Yourself?" "Good, good. Good! So how many you want this time?" My grandfather, even in the retelling of the story, heaved the most world-weary sigh and said, "How many you got?" Now that I'm studying bio, may I just say how fervently I wish my primary association with the words alpha, beta, omega was literally anything other than what it is. My nutrition professor was talking about vitamins and said, the only reason you all even know the words alpha and omega is because of sororities. And I wanted so badly to raise my hand and be like, if you're gonna be a jerk for some reason, please let me explain to you in depth my immediate connotations for those words. Once I used a phrase alpha and omega of something during a lecture, and one of the students giggled so hysterically I knew. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and let me tell you, this was the most profound moment of horror and understanding I've ever shared with another person. To be honest, I think the funniest phenomena that's been happening in the last couple of years is YouTuber, having gone too deep into the research hole, has been made an investigative journalist against their will. Shout out to the guy who wanted to do some fun and silly little reviews, but uncovered an illegal gambling operation. I rated places with 0 reviews. This guy started out poking fun at Australian politicians and ended up investigating the firebombing of his own home, during which he uncovered connections between the same politician he was making fun of plus major organized crime. Who firebombed friendly Geordies? Here's the thing. Imagine if we fixed the housing market so the price of housing only increased to match inflation. That would be great, right? Except homeowners typically spend $2,000 to $10,000 per year on maintenance, so homeownership would go from an investment to an endless money pit, just like renting. The idea of a house as an investment, a house as a way to build wealth, requires that housing prices increase faster than inflation forever, which means that the burden of housing costs on working people must keep increasing forever, and the number of homeless people must keep increasing forever. The housing crisis isn't just a result of greedy landlords and investors. It's an inevitable result of social policies that encourage people to treat their houses as an investment, because once a homeowner internalizes the idea that their financial future depends on housing prices going up, they start favoring policies such as NIMBYism that make housing prices go up. Tumblr being the pee on the poor reading comprehension site makes sense when you realize that 79% of adults in the US are functionally illiterate. Same goes for Twitter and TikTok. That's a real high number, sport. Where'd you get it? Hey Anon, 2024 to 2025 literacy statistics. On average, 79% of US adults nationwide are literate in 2024. 21% of adults in the US are illiterate in 2024. Please tell me you didn't Google US literacy rates and then make the funniest possible mistake one could make in that situation. New level of job application hell just dropped. How do you feel life has worked out for you so far? Please record a short, roughly 2 to 5 minute video response and paste the link here. We recommend using loom.com for this. It's free, or you can use any tool you prefer. In the instance an employer makes an illegal request for a photograph as part of a job application, you may submit a complaint to the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Successful violation fee collections are paid partially to the one who suffered the violation, which in many cases exceeds a year of work at these crap jobs. There's only 2 week points to a corporation, and those are in the budget and in the supply chain. Hit them where it hurts. In law school, my mom took me to the stress retreat because my family was vaguely aware I was a toaster bath risk, and they didn't allow phones, so I brought this huge bag of books. And one of the options for de-stressing was this fake cave grotto thing, where they decorated a room to make it look exactly like an underground cave, and the air was like -10 degrees, but there was like a 4-foot deep pool in the middle that was kept super hot, so you would just switch between the hot and cold, and they would bring you an endless supply of this weird syrupy drink thing that was like super caffeinated and tasted like sugar and mint. And so I spent multiple days sitting half submerged in this fake grotto drinking mystery liquid and reading, and I have to be honest, I really did feel less stressed. Still mad about smart TVs. That crap should be in a separate box. Like, you can literally buy one of them Android TV boxes for $30. It doesn't need its own IP address, it doesn't need its own app store, it doesn't need to replicate the functionality every device plugged into it already has. I want a big screen whose entire job is to show me whatever device I plug into it. And also audio. I want to save my documents on the computer that I'm using. I want to own the media I buy. I want tech that is fat, properly cooled, simpler, serviceable by a normal person, and not forcing me to constantly select the only spy on me a little bit box every couple weeks. Instant Pot parent company declared bankruptcy today. Sales went from $758 million in 2020 to $344 million in 2022. The Instant Pot is like a once-in-decade purchase, so private equity guys try to extend brand with air fryer, mini oven, and coffee maker. Company folds because it only makes $344 million in sales because its product is too high quality and lasts too long. And people still say we don't need degrowth. Lies, greed, and exploding crockpots. How private equity firm Cornell Capital's purchase of Instant Brands went very. Trustee Alan Halperin seeks to recover at least $400 million for Instant Brand creditors. It was private equity that sunk Instapot, just like Joann's and Toys R Us. People who studied Latin, can you tell me any stories about your Latin studying experiences, funny or non-funny? I once was sitting in O'Hare Airport reading a book of Latin poetry when a guy looking like a monk walks up to me looking utterly lost and asks, "Loquerisne latine, do you speak Latin?" To which I answer, "Ita, passumne te adivare." Yes, can I help you? Turned out he was indeed a Polish monk and knew only Polish and Latin, had never been outside Poland before or even seen the inside of an airport, and needed help finding his way. I wish I knew more about this monk's journey. Where was he going? What sights did he see? That doesn't sound sincere. It sounds rehearsed, is one of the most devastating and frigged up statements you can make to anyone in the neurodivergent/ADHD/autistic/schizophrenic/disordered personality sphere. Yeah, Hag, it's rehearsed, because I wanted to get it right when I said it. I've recently discovered how much better life can be when we normalize this. My best friend and I have started saying, "Hang on, I'm scripting," when we need a minute to mentally rehearse during big conversations. And bear with me, I'm doing improv when we reach the end of our script and start to struggle with words, lol. Sharks are older than the North Star is now the worst fact I know. Not as in Polaris wasn't the North Star when sharks first evolved. The star Polaris is literally just younger than sharks. I find this really upsetting. Things in the universe younger than sharks. Saturn's rings, 100 million years old. The Pleiades cluster, 75 to 150 million years old. One galactic orbit of the sun, 200 to 225 million years. So sharks have actually done it twice. A lot of exoplanets. The light travel time across the Boötes void, the largest known void between galaxies, 350 million light-year diameter. British Broadcasting Corporation wildlife crew broke the no intervention rule to save trapped penguins. There's nothing natural about letting helpless animals die for no reason. You are part of nature. If you want to save them, then nature wants them saved. The universe is blind to our sorrows and indifferent to our pains. Have a nice day. Neil, there is a logic flaw in your little aphorism that seems quite telling. Since you and I are part of the universe, then we would also be indifferent and uncaring. Perhaps you forgot, Neil, that we are not superior to the universe, but merely a fraction of it. Nice day indeed. I bring a sort of human rights means all humans vibe to my activism that people invested in us versus them binaries don't really like. And also, I think there's a distinction to be made anyhow between kindness and human rights. Kindness is helping your neighbor carry groceries in because they look tired. Human rights are things like a right to medical care, housing, liberty, etc. I have a crappy MAGA neighbor. I feel under no obligation to help him prune his roses, even though I would help most elders in that situation. However, his social security should not be at risk. What he gets from me is support for those basic human rights, not my extremely good banana bread. Boy in the pub was telling me his job is every time a plane flies over Edinburgh Zoo, the penguins can't take their eyes off it and end up falling over, and he just goes around picking them back up. 38 penguins, 2,000 flights a day. I love how they said 2,000 flights a day, because let's say they work a 12-hour shift. That's 2 to 3 planes per second, and if it was 24 hours a day, it would be 1 every second. Obviously it's a joke, but the visual is driving me insane. Thinking about this guy who has to spend every second hurriedly propping up a penguin just for it to immediately fall again, yet he still does it. Just keep him on the floor at that point. I humbly suggest that true crime freaks should get into learning about scammers instead of serial killers. I love reading about fraud and grifts and pyramid schemes. True crime people have all this paranoid energy about murder, which is rare in the grand scheme of things. And you know a side effect of learning about scam artists is that you start to understand certain things about economics and just how stupid these systems are and how easily they are taken advantage of. And I'd much rather people gain a passing familiarity with economics than whatever armchair psychologist crap these true crimers get on. We need fewer people who think they're experts on sociopaths and more people who understand how people like Elizabeth Holmes and the WeWork guy were able to do what they did. That Muppet post reminded me, most if not all of the main Muppets have Twitter pages. Favorite has gotta be Miss Piggy's, which is filled with selfies and vaguely uplifting text that's also egocentric. All the comments are people complimenting her and being like, "Yas, queen." Hashtag diva tips. When you're having a great hair day, you must post a picture of it. It's not a law, but it should be. Close second is Gonzo's, which is just unhinged.
Some celebrities are honored to have sandwiches or buildings named after them, but that's too boring for me. I've been trying to get someone to name a bog-draining hydraulic system after me for years. This hashtag Groundhog Day, you could trust the weather-predicting wisdom of a rodent, or you could listen to me, a weirdo who spent last night buried underground, connecting with Mother Earth. My prediction, it'll rain at some point in the next 15 months.
Part of the reason I'm so adamant about encouraging people to get comfortable with bugs, my own interests aside, is because we cannot have a bright solar punk future without them. A green future is not a bugless future. It is, in fact, a fairly bugful future. If you care about ecological stability, then you need to start with bugs, because they're the most at risk with our current use of pesticides. Bugs are second most at risk for modern agricultural techniques. The soil biome itself, mycelium, microbiota, are the most impacted. To have a healthy ecosystem, one must first have healthy soil and healthy microorganisms. Going back in time to when they crucified Jesus, not to save him, I'm pro-choice, but to climb up there and feed him ibuprofen and many M&Ms from my slightly cupped palm, like one might feed sugar cubes to a horse. I'm sorry, do you mean to imply that the crucifixion was some sort of celestial pregnancy termination? I actually meant to imply that Jesus chose to die on the cross, and that attempting to save him would be negating his bodily autonomy. So even though I'm Jewish and think the crucifixion was a needlessly painful and horrible way to die, I would still respect his right to choose to sacrifice himself. But yeah, sure, also a celestial pregnancy termination. Just so people know, epilepsy warnings aren't about like purity culture or online leftists acting as if disabled people are real. It's about my mom. We human beings have discovered patterns of light and or sound that kill some people, and we should probably not have hissy fits about your right to fire a weapon at my mom. Like, if you could put some text on screen explaining the upcoming seizure-inducing patterns so that people can scroll away, that's super friggin' easy. I am sorry that something as mindless as a TikTok edit could kill someone, but hey, so could driving to work every morning. We all treat that accordingly. Long pointed stare, because yes, we had better be treating that accordingly too. The casual abundance of thing that kills people doesn't mean you shouldn't avoid killing people. I live in an apartment complex that has a bunch of little kids. During the original lockdowns, I would go outside to walk around and get out, and one day one of the kids launched a soccer ball my direction. Without thinking, I headed the ball back to them, and they said something like, "Whoa, do it again, do it again!" And I was hesitant at first, because I'm a bald 31-year-old with a large beard playing with a bunch of little kids. I told them, "I'm not sure if your parents would want you playing with a stranger, but you guys have fun." I didn't realize their mom was sitting inside with the window open watching them, and I hear her yell, "Please kick the ball around with them if you want to. I know you live across the hall. I see you all the time." I proceeded to play soccer with them for about 2 hours and had a blast. Now every Friday, without fail, a group of kids knock on my door at 6 p.m. because they know I'm off work and want me to play some kind of game with them. We played freeze tag last Friday. It was dope. I cheated and climbed a tree so they couldn't get me. Makes me feel like a kid again, and it truly is a highlight to my week. The mom also brings me fresh homemade tamales at least every 2 weeks and refuses to let me pay for them. When I die, I want to be resurrected as the crab in the bucket of crabs that pulls the other crabs back into the bucket, and I'll love doing it. Fun fact, the crab bucket thing is a misunderstood community defense mechanism. If you're a crab, you spend most of your time chilling on the ocean floor. Your number one predator, large fish, but especially rays, swoop down, gulp you up, and swoop back up. So crabs, when they sense danger, instinctively clutch each other. It's easy to snatch a stray crab, almost impossible to snatch a large mass with a death grip on each other. Crabs and buckets know they're in danger, but the only way they know to protect themselves is by joining together. Nobody ever seems to blame the bucket. Here's the thing, I love the horror aesthetic, but I hate the horror mood. I find fear and horror to be unpleasant emotions, ones that I don't want to experience in my enjoyment media. I like stories with things that are weird and unnatural and dangerous in the same sense that a river or a fire is dangerous. It cares nothing for you and can destroy you, but it also has no malice, and once you know its nature, you can work with it more or less safely, so long as you never think yourself safe. I like dark castles ruled by ominous and mysterious beings, and I especially love the various petty drama that happens between the monsters who work in said castles. I like things that explore the realities and challenges of different forms of unlife, of being something changed and inhuman, but I don't like things that delve too deep into I'm having an existential crisis and all my former friends now hate me. That's a completely different form of horror, one which I find deeply unappealing. Please do me a favor and look up Dovekey on your nearest image searching tool at your earliest convenience. For me, thank you. What a shape. Dovekey, tiny water bird, the size of an elongated grapefruit. In non-breeding plumage, they are black above and white below with a black stripe on the side of the neck and a white comma behind eye. Short, stout bill. Horizontal posture like a football floating on the water. Dives frequently when feeding. In winter, only likely to be seen from land. Elongated grapefruit. Posture like a football. Very important. Their wings are so little. The second you start talking about some mysterious they that are controlling society in some fashion, you are engaging in dangerous conspiratorial thinking even if you're being woke about it. They did not institute the 40-hour workweek specifically so you would be too tired to revolt. They did not invent the sleek minimalist aesthetic in order to crush the spirit of art in the common people. They are not pushing mediocre media into the mainstream in order to poison people's critical thinking skills. Your best case scenario after that is you talk to someone who actually knows what the frig they're talking about and you get embarrassed because you can't answer basic questions about your own ideology because you never learned anything past the ruling class / capitalist / politicians are making things bad, and if we got rid of them, the bad things would all go away. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will be the first game to feature NVIDIA's RTX hair technology, which uses spheres instead of triangles to achieve more realistic hair rendering. What are we doing here, man? They're pushing graphics so hard because they realize that they got nothing else, and gamers are pretty dumb, so they'll fall for it and buy a $10,000 graphics card so you can see every character's individual nose hairs. This is somehow the next step in game design, and then you can't even see said hairs because it's all smeared in TAA and DLSS grease. They invented conditioner. What we've got to understand is that the modern internet is abolishing spaces for adults, and the modern internet is abolishing space for children are compatible phenomena. Neither group is being favored. The modern internet is abolishing spaces for adults, i.e. because grown-up topics aren't advertiser-friendly, and the modern internet is abolishing spaces for children, i.e. because online communities which consist principally of people who have no money are hard to sell things to. The internet that contemporary corporate interests are trying to build isn't a space for anyone. It's the digital digital equivalent of an IKEA showroom. I had a dream that Pepsi released a candy called Pepsi Particles that were caviar-sized spherical Pepsi logos that fizzed in your mouth. The packaging was a blue and silver pouch with a Pepsi logo surrounded with rings like an atom. There were Crystal Pepsi and Pepsi Blue flavors as well. I can't stop thinking about them. Artist rendition. Whipped up a concept of more candy-style packaging, rather than the Oreo pack look that he drew. This response still haunts me. The more I reflect on it, the more I believe this person knows me and knew this minimalist take would particularly tick me off. The fact that this is on a throwaway account with this being their only post really enforces that. So who did this? You can come clean now. I promise I won't get mad. Please. It's important that everyone understand that when I say that I like a villainous character, what I in fact mean is that I consider them to be both cool and morally praiseworthy, as well as correct in their aims and methods and worthy of emulation by people in the real world. Just in case there was any ambiguity on this point, I further elaborate that I consider them to be an excellent role model for impressionable children. I almost neglected to mention that they are a worthy coital partner and that I am into everything that they do. Pasta only fills you up with empty calories. Have you considered that it also fills me with love and warmth and happiness, and most importantly, pasta? I did sports in college, and the day before every tournament, we go to Olive Garden and eat as much pasta as possible. Carb loading. Carbohydrates serve as the body's main source of energy. The carbs we consume are broken down into glucose, a type of sugar which is used to fuel cell function. When that energy isn't immediately used, the fuel is converted to glycogen and stored in the liver and muscle tissue. During endurance or high-intensity exercise, the body uses more of this store than during lower-intensity activities. The epidemic of grown adults playing TikToks at full volume in public is rampant. Why are you acting like a 7-year-old with their first iPad? You have a mortgage! One guy was FaceTiming his sister. She was in Texas for work, and I know this because they were yell-talking at each other. This went on for a few minutes, so I got up, walked over and sat down in the chair next to him, and asked if she was staying hydrated, as I heard Texas can get really hot in the summer, and that it looked like she has a bit of a sunburn. The two of them were flabbergasted, and the guy said, "What are you doing?" So I was like, "Well, you included me in this call, and I'm just worried about your sister." He goes, "I'm having a private conversation." So I go, "If it was private, then how the hell do I know you're talking to your sister who is in Texas on a business trip?" Ultimately, I'm not sure he really got the point, but he lowered the volume because now he's worried about creeps like me listening to his conversations. But at least he's behaving now, even if he doesn't understand why. Dragon.
Oh, jeez, I didn't even see this thing here. Hey, Cora, be cool. We have an adventurer in here.
Adventure. Perish, cruel worm. Stab. Dragon.
Oh, it's bitey. Okay, calm down, little fella. I'm just gonna get you out.
Gently deposits adventurer outside. Closes hillside. I now have a mental image of a dragon delicately scooping a D&D party into a large glass cup and carefully letting them go outside while its spouse is disparagingly saying, "Oh, just squish them." And then the first dragon is like, "No, they're good for getting rid of other pests." A long time ago, I was in a typography class and I had an assignment to draw a word out of its material, like writing rock and drawing it to make it look like it's carved from stone. I chose hair and I was proud enough of the result that I ended up posting it online to Twitter. Whoever I showed it to online, I got a weird reaction like, "Oh, cool," which was strange because I was expecting to get complimented on it. It turned out that no one thought it was a drawing. For months, everyone I showed it to thought that I was playing with wet hair clippings in my spare time like some nasty little freak. This is the drawing, by the way. Guys, I friggin' swear it isn't real hair. Remembering that time I met someone who attended high school in West Bend, Wisconsin, and they told me how their school district works. To them, it was completely normal. Well, I was wondering if they were messing with me. The district has 2 high schools, East and West, which share one building. Each school has about 1,100 students. The 2 high schools were formed in 1970, but proposals for merging the schools have been raised since the 1980s. Incoming freshmen born on even number dates attend West Bend East, while those born on odd number dates attend West Bend West. Students with siblings already in high school follow their eldest sibling, so all children from a family attend the same high school. The high schools have different students, teachers, and sports teams, but share an auditorium, music department, gymnasium complex, and natatorium. In athletics, both East and West participate in the North Shore Conference. Their schools are conjoined twins? So here's what I've now done to make the internet usable as a person living in the UK without handing my ID and or facial scans over to random third parties. Signed up for a Proton VPN account, set up a tunnel from my router to a Proton VPN server in Sweden, written a Python script to query DNS servers for social media domains every 15 minutes, and collate the results into a list of IP address ranges, created routing and firewall policies to block connections to those IP ranges on my normal connection, and send them through the VPN tunnel instead, set up a second personal VPN so I can make my mobile devices connect to the internet through my home network even when I'm not at home, or just go outside, touch grass, screen's bad, haha, boomer comic, where's the power switch on this book, is not an appropriate reaction to a government implementing digital surveillance on a massive new scale. Museums not giving stolen artifacts and bodies back is bonkers. Like, what if someone from China went into Arlington Cemetery and dug up JFK's dead body and took him and his eternal flame back to China and refused to give him back? Like, that would be pretty messed up and kind of weird, right? Like, put John back, that's not where he goes. But that's basically what the British Museum does every day. Imagine if somebody went into all the Catholic churches in your area and cut out all their stained glass windows to display in a sterile white room 5,000 miles away. Like, that's the level of ridiculousness we're dealing with here. Those aren't your windows, man. What the frig? The rental provider believes that it is unusual for a renter to decorate the front-facing windows of the property with x-rays. He believes that this creates an unusual street look and impacts the complex's overall appeal. This is understandable given the quantum of the investment and the unusualness of the decorations. There is also a minor concern about causing damage to the glazing, as the long-term impact of x-ray material against glass is unknown to us/the owner. As such, if you can remove these without creating any changes to your enjoyment of the home, then the rental provider would appreciate it. There are very suitable day/night blinds installed that should provide both light and privacy as needed. Kind regards. Nah, yeah, we're actually doing more. Chinese doctor accused of stealing confidential US-funded cancer research. Prosecutors said Lee uploaded his research to his personal Google Drive while employed at the cancer center, and when caught by the institution, deleted the files and proved he had done so. But Lee, whose potentially life-changing work was funded by the National Institutes of Health and the Department of Defense, was also being paid by Chinese entities and had shared his files to a similar drive on a Chinese server called Baidu, court documents showed. Fox 26 reported. Wait, so the guy stole his own research? That's not really stealing, though. When I was a kid, for some reason I thought Lola Bunny's last name was Rabbit, and that she was actually Jessica and Roger's daughter. And the reason she wasn't in the original Looney Tunes is just that she wasn't born yet. I mean, can you blame me? Look at them and look at her. She's got a good blend of both of their features. This is the only good headcanon I've ever had, to be honest. Yeah, I'll incorporate that into my belief system. The real reason Bugs Bunny took a break after Space Jam is not because it flopped, but because he required years of therapy after Roger went directly from the Hollywood premiere of his daughter's big debut to breaking every bone in Bugs' body with a brick. This had realistic medical repercussions because he used non-comedic violence. It's how it works. Controversial opinion. What honest person doesn't use their name for their handle on Twitter? Not using your real name on the internet is basic internet safety. It was the unanimous recommendation up until 5 minutes after tech companies figured out they could sell your home address and browsing habits for cash money. Strangers on the internet are not entitled to any aspect of your personal information. Not your name, not where you live, not your age, none of it. You may absolutely volunteer that information, but no one has the right to demand it of you, and wishing to keep it private is no sin nor any indication of guilt. Had a semi-recent experience on here with someone saying they needed to know my age, and I promptly ignored them. Have I mentioned my age on occasion? Absolutely, but it's not something I'm going to tell someone just because they demand it. Whenever I'm bored, I go to r/petfree and scroll for a while, because these people are so friggin' insane and have cultivated an echo chamber that is so crazy and they don't even know it. It's like actually really funny. It's infuriating to see gorgeous places ruined by dogs, pet owners making our lives hell. Like, what? You're mad because you saw a dog's footprints in the sand. Not an actual dog or dog poop, just footprints that will be washed away? You are a human being living on Earth. Of course you're going to see evidence of dogs being alive sometimes. Are you like, okay? In college back in 2018, I still didn't have a smartphone yet, and they introduced Duo two-factor authentication, and I carried one of the physical clickers because I couldn't use the phone app. I remember classmates being unable to participate in class or print assignments at the library, even with school computers, because they left their phones at home by accident, or their phones died so they couldn't log into their school profiles. Professors started doing those Kahoot quiz games for attendance points, and I told them I couldn't participate because I didn't have a smartphone. One of my professors scoffed in front of the whole class and said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Are you going to pay for my data plan?" He relented because he had to, and every single day he had to print out a little physical quiz for me to take while everyone else did Kahoots. It was so funny because it was a lecture hall with like 150 students. He gave up after like 3 times and just counted me present. At work, I refuse to have a single work-related app on a phone they aren't paying for, so they always have to order me the physical clickers for double authentication, and they act like I'm pouring concrete in their shoes about it, Lamau. Therapists are secretly using ChatGPT. Clients are triggered. Some therapists are using AI during therapy sessions. They're risking their clients' trust. Declan would have never found out his therapist was using ChatGPT had it not been for a technical mishap. The connection was patchy during one of their online sessions, so Declan suggested they turn off their video feeds. Instead, his therapist began inadvertently sharing his screen. Suddenly, I was watching him use ChatGPT, says Declan, 31, who lives in Los Angeles. He was taking what I was saying and putting it into ChatGPT and then summarizing memorizing or cherry-picking answers. I attended a campfire presentation by a park ranger who described osprey as both the pickiest and least picky eaters of all time. They're the pickiest because they only eat things they can catch by plunging into at least 6 feet of water feet first, and are as close to their maximum carrying capacity as possible to maximize calories per trip. They're the least picky because so long as something fits those parameters, osprey will go for it. The ranger then showed us an extensive slideshow of the local osprey in flight with their catches, which included trout, carp, snakes, bass, eels, small sharks, ducks, surprisingly large catfish, a Nerf football, muskrats, a summer sausage that fell off a boat, sneakers, a fish previously thought to be extinct in the area, a Barbie doll, and another osprey. I am pro wool, I am pro leather, I am pro bees. Frig the idea of replacing durable, sustainable animal products with cheap, flimsy plastic that doesn't biodegrade. Agave nectar and other artificial sweeteners are expensive, labor-intensive, and destroy the environment to be farmed. Do not buy into pernicious marketing campaigns pushed by butthead organizations trying to stay relevant like PETA. Wool is possibly the most vegan-friendly, non-harmful fabric we have available. Not only can it be harvested completely risk-free with zero damage to the sheep it's harvested from, but it's beneficial to the sheep. Sheep need to be sheared to stay healthy. It's good for them. It reduces their stress, risk of illness, and keeps them safe in the heat. Wool is good. Even if you feel icky about wearing leather or hides, wool should be universally viewed as a good thing. Do you guys remember when Tesla made a car whose windows wouldn't be broken by a tow hitch? And then they made the claim that it would withstand a nuclear blast. And a Jalopnik writer wrote and published a piece that was just like, prove it, Elon. Go on, nuke your car. Because I think about it every day. Please give us a nuke so we can test Tesla's semi-claim. Nukes are the most unforgiving, most horrifying specter of death that humanity has ever devised. Virtually nothing can survive their vaporizing combination of heat, blast effects, and gamma-ray radiation. Nothing, that is, except the windshield of a Tesla semi. We'd sure like to test that. Working at an escape room and watching people spend 75% of their time asking ChatGPT about a puzzle it's never seen is a harrowing experience I would not wish on my worst enemy. I love escape rooms so much, that makes me so sad. Genuinely, I had to add a suggestion to my opener being like, ChatGPT isn't going to help you, it's never been in this room before. I cannot comprehend the idea of going to a place where you pay to challenge your brain and then using a robot to solve crap for you. Like, that's not fun. You're just wasting your time. I don't understand. I work at a restaurant, and I had to watch a table divide 100 by 4 with ChatGPT. The core appeal of Willy Wonka is that he's a nigh omnipotent maniac who uses his near limitless powers over reality to trick crappy people into dying. You can't make him the protagonist of a whimsical coming-of-age tale. You have to treat him like Jason Voorhees or Dracula or any other horror icon. Give him some new victims and new interesting kills and set him loose. That's all audiences want. I feel like I watched a somewhat different movie. To this day, I think about a form signature I'll never find again. Willy Wonka has always embodied my image of a vengeful but loving god, and that feels like the correct interpretation. Most notable times of being hit on by customers. Guy who tried to impress me with card tricks and failed every single one of them. Old man who attempted to get my number when his wife walked away and slipped me his email address ending with @AOL.com when I said I don't do that. Cute gay couple that came back to tell me I was cute and then called the shop to ask me out. Older professor who I talked to about folklore and told me he dressed as a wizard for recitals saying, "This is really embarrassing, but I'd love to get to know you more," and gave me a receipt with his email address on it. Dude in his 40s asking me on a movie date and me saying yes, but then he kept starting text conversations with ahoy hoy. Military guy who said it'd be hot if I killed him with a baseball bat. It has come to my attention there exists a subset of reenactors who go around Renaissance fairs infecting bystanders with the plague. I wish to thank these heroes for their service. Yes, this can come in the form of dressing up as a pack of rats and offering people, "Congratulations, you've contracted the Black Death hand stamps," but consider also walking around asking people if they want to pet your rat, plushie, going in character as a fur trader carting around a wagon full of exotic wares at competitive prices, handing people a business card containing only the printed image of a flea, and on the back, the text, cosplaying as a giant bacterium. Recently got unionized and got a 150% wage increase overnight. The IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, recently contracted a deal with my company. I'm 24 and I was making $17.50 an hour, turned to $45 an hour overnight with continuous raises yearly. I work as a vegetation management inspector for a company contracted through PG&E. 1,500 employees also received this raise. Frig the stigma of not discussing wages. Just goes to show that these companies can afford these wages in the first place. Discussing wage being seen as rude is 100% something invented by people interested in paying as little as possible for labor. The older you get, the more you'll realize that your friends are people who've made mistakes and bad decisions and even just frigged up and hurt people. And obviously your boundaries with your friends are completely up to you, but you do need to recognize that if you cut off everyone who's done something wrong, you're going to end up with no friends, and you yourself will have also frigged up in your life and not lived up to those impossible standards either. I found it's much more constructive to learn how to say, hey dude, that was massively frigged up of you, because most people are really willing to say, yeah, it was. I need to work on it / not do it again / apologize and make things right, especially if they're hearing it from you as their friend. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for another person is to tell them that they've done something wrong, help them fix it, and stay their friend, because it's what we would want from them if we did something wrong. A video game where the whole concept is that you're in a city and you've got a pressure washer. You can pressure wash anything. Just pick a random object. Wall, car, pavement, statue. Go, I wonder what color that thing used to be. And then you just run the washer over it, slowly and neatly and not missing a spot. Very calm, very soothing, very relaxing. If you aim it at people, they get mad at you. If you aim it on squirrels or very small dogs, they explode. People don't like that either. If enough people get mad at you, the cops will start chasing you. You're fine for as long as they don't catch you. If you find a good hiding spot, they give up looking for you eventually. You can pull up a manhole cover and hide in the sewer, chilling there for a bit, pressure washing the walls. Vaccine breakthrough means no more chasing strains. Scientists at UC Riverside have demonstrated a new RNA-based vaccine strategy that is effective against any strain of a virus and can be used safely, even by babies or the immunocompromised. Every year, researchers try to predict the 4 influenza strains that are most likely to be prevalent during the upcoming flu season. And every year, people line up to get their updated vaccine, hoping the researchers formulated the shot correctly. This new strategy would eliminate the need to create all these different shots, because it targets a part of the viral genome that is common to all strains of a virus. What I want to emphasize about this vaccine strategy is that it's broad, said UCR virologist and paper author Rong Hai. It is broadly applicable to any number of viruses, broadly effective against any variant of a virus, and safe for a broad spectrum of people. This could be the universal vaccine that we've been looking for. One time, I saw a photo of a skinned whale / dolphin flipper on Reddit or something, and I've just never recovered. There's just a paw in there. One of the most spiritually profound moments of my life was when I was 6-ish and at a natural history museum with my parents that had a whale skeleton hanging from the ceiling. I remember my dad picking me up to sit on his shoulders, possibly one of the last times he did that because I was getting too big to hold there for long, so I could be close to its flipper because he wanted to show me something. He had me hold up my arm parallel to the whale's and explain that we had the same bones, pointing to its scapula and humerus and radius and ulna and so on, while poking the same bones in my skinny little arm, all the way down to the tips of my fingers and its own. I had a friend ask me if I couldn't train an LLM on my books and then have it first draft chapters for me to see how the characters react to plot points, and I had to explain that for me, that's not just the best part, but literally the entire point of writing. It's not to have a book. I can't even wrap my head around people who think like this. I love imagining my characters in various scenarios and all the intricate, complex ways they react to things. That's literally the entire reason they exist. That's the fun part. Head and hands. So many people who love generative AI don't have a creative bone in their body and can't imagine anyone actually enjoying the time and effort it takes to write something or draw something. I am sick and tired of seeing so much hate towards Al. Al hasn't done anything to hurt anyone. Al is harmless, but I can already hear the Al haters out there. Al is an original. No crap, Sherlock. That's what we love the most about Al. People aren't supposed to look like that. That sounds like a problem between you and God. And frankly, plenty of people like the way Al looks. Al is just too weird. Have you ever thought that you might be too normal to actually appreciate Al? I think you all need to apologize to Al right now. Apologize to him. Apologize to Weird Al right now. That thing about how cats think humans are big kittens is a myth, you know. It's basically born of false assumptions. Folks were trying to explain how a naturally solitary animal could form such complex social bonds with humans, and the explanation they settled on is, it's a displaced parent-child bond. The trouble is, cats aren't naturally solitary. We just assumed they were based on observations of European wildcats. But house cats aren't descended from European wildcats. They're descended from African wildcats, which are known to hunt in bonded pairs and family groupings, and that social tendency is even stronger in their domesticated relatives. The natural social unit of the house cat is a colony, a loose affiliation of cats centered around a shared territory held by a alliance of dominant females, who raise all of the colony's kittens communally. Frig an intended audience. How about we normalize engaging with new and unfamiliar art pieces on their own terms? Pixar boss Pete Docter once asked Hayao Miyazaki while discussing the development of films, when do you make changes for yourself and when do you make changes for the audience? Miyazaki replied, I never think about the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the difference between pushing a product and creating a work of art. We need a death of the audience. Lots of media gets worse because authors are too worried about a hypothetical audience. As someone engaging with media, you need to understand that you simply might not understand all of it, and that's okay. But also, I think more authors need to realize that it's okay if not everyone in the audience will fully understand everything they're doing. An insult to practically everybody with any point of view at all. One of the most beautiful sentences possible with the English language. Nothing could have prepared me for the context. The original candidate for DC Comics' first headlining black superhero was a character called the Black Bomber, a white racist who would turn into a black superhero under stress. Comics historian Don Markstein later described the character as an insult to practically everybody with any point of view at all. Black Lightning. Like, what do you mean? Who the frig? All chiropractors either, 1, know they're scamming you with dangerous pseudoscience, so you shouldn't let them near your neck or give them money, or 2, genuinely believe they're dangerous pseudoscience, so you shouldn't let them near your neck or give them money. And that's simply the facts of the matter, unfortunately. Maybe you disagree and that's your right, and I never try to take that away from you, but you are unfortunately completely wrong, and I would encourage looking up more about this. At best, chiropractor adjustments are just as effective as a massage, and at worst, they can kill you. Just get a massage. Those won't kill you, and they're usually cheaper. I don't care if they make their whole way through union with ChatGPT. I think you guys are so internet pilled that you've forgotten there are actual jobs out there that require people to know what they're doing in any way possible, or else people die. I know a lot of people study just to get paid well, but girl, this is engineering. Be for friggin' real. Take this seriously. One of my acquaintances in my architectural engineering course back in 2009 was complaining that even if he wasn't getting the right answers for applied maths, he should at least get partial credit for doing the rest of the problem correctly. But in engineering, once you've made one single error in your numbers without double checking, you failed your job. The only partial credit in real life is when you're pulled up in front of a judge and jury over a bad design. AI constantly returns bad results in math problems, and too many people put too much faith in computers to be right that they don't even check once, let alone twice. In almost every other children's book where the main heroine is swept away to a land of whimsy, she's shown having a lovely time, braving dangers occasionally, trying to find her way home, sure, but ultimately delighting in the magic around her. Meanwhile, Alice spends her entire time in Wonderland like, look, here's the thing, Alice in Wonderland's enduring friggin' charm is that it perfectly captures the vibe of being a very tired and annoyed child who is nonetheless required to play along with adult nonsense. Alice is dragged from place to place without warning, forced to play stupid games with no good prizes, grilled over her schooling and manners and recitation and dress, scolded, judged, insulted to her face, sent away, given gifts you didn't ask for and doesn't like, corrected incorrectly, been subject to shifting and arbitrary rules, and then when she gets snappish with all this bullcrap, everyone acts like a little girl's temper is the end of the friggin' world. Weird as frig, living in a culture where it's considered more impolite to speak up and defend yourself against someone treating you unfairly than it is for someone to be rude to you in the first place. Older family members, co-workers, customers, and strangers in general can say the most backcrap insane things to your face, and somehow you're considered to be the rude one if you say, hey, that wasn't cool of you to say. I'm nearly 30 years old, and my family tells me it's rude if I walk out of the room after they make fun of me and my friends. Some loser.
Humans are innately selfish creatures.
My psych book. In humans, empathy comes naturally. Even day-old infants cry more when they hear another infant cry. In hospital nurseries, one baby's crying sometimes evokes a chorus of crying. Most 18th-month-old infants, after observing an unfamiliar adult accidentally drop a marker or clothespin and have trouble reaching it, will readily help. To some, this suggests that humans are hardwired for empathy. Primates and even mice also display empathy, indicating that the building blocks of prosocial behavior predate humanity. My parents visited today, and their latest item of what people you know in school are up to lately gossip was about the absolutely bonkers thing they're trying to talk their friend out of doing to her daughter. I'm still in shock, to be honest. Their friend is helping her daughter's boyfriend's mom to throw a 200-guest surprise engagement party for her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. The daughter and the boyfriend are not engaged. Neither of them have even discussed planning to get engaged with their respective mothers. The moms are going to surprise the boyfriend with his late grandmother's ring at the party and tell him it's to propose to his girlfriend in front of 200 friends and family members. Just an absolute nightmare scenario. For those who haven't been following, this Nepal story is friggin' crazy. Bunch of teens and early 20s kids plan to start a social movement against the current regime on social issues and economic inequalities. Government gets wind of its scaling and tries to geo-block social media. People get more ticked off, start protesting. Government can't handle the protests, lifts social media ban, doesn't do anything. People just organize further, burn down Parliament building, PM's house, beats the crap out of the finance minister in the streets, kills the PM's wife. Kids elect their own new PM on their Discord server, ex-Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who was part of the 1990 revolution that ended the monarchy. Army head acknowledges the validity of the Discord vote and is meeting a new interim PM to discuss elections for new leadership going forward. I love telling the story about winning a sumo wrestling contest in college. It was even less plausible than it sounds. Every time I mention it, people give me this look like they're trying to determine if there used to be a lot more of me, and then I got really sick. It was just for the martial arts class I was in, so only about 40 people, but all but maybe 5 of us were tall dudes. The goal was to make the other person be the first to step outside the ring. I was scrappy enough, but I knew I stood no chance. I thought it would be funny to do a Bugs Bunny thing, so at the beginning of my first turn, I puffed out my chest and gave my opponent a tough look, and acted like I was ready to rumble. He ran at me, and at the last moment I just turned to the side, and he kept going right out of the ring. Of course, everyone thought it was very funny that this actually worked. We laughed, and I prepared to get walloped in the next round, but then it worked again, and again. I love Gordon Ramsay so much. He comes from a very poor family. His father was an alcoholic who beat him and his mother. He once poured hot tea over her and put her in the hospital several times. His brother is an addict. He literally built an empire out of nothing. He credits his mother as his biggest inspiration and often has her cooking in his shows. When he left his first restaurant, he pulled a successful Jerry Maguire. The entire kitchen staff went with him. That tells you what he's like to work with. He was one of the first to give a restaurant to a female chef. He went to prison, Gordon behind bars, and taught inmates to bake, and they opened a bakery, Bad Boys Bakery, that is still running. He hired one of them when he got out. I feel bad that the first association to him for a lot of people is the shouty TV chef when he's truly a wonderful person. 20-somethings on this website doing none of the things we're evolved to do for our health and then wondering why they're so depressed. Smacking you through the screen. Go eat a leaf! Go crack a nut open with a rock, you sad, tormented little ape! I know this is easier said than done, and I don't mean this judgmentally, but you have to start treating yourself like the animal you are in any small, consistent way you can. Like imagine you went to a zoo and you saw a gorilla sitting in front of blue screens for hours with no natural light, no physical activity, no interaction with peers, no nutritious whole foods, no fresh air, no water, and a pack of cigarettes. You would run screaming to the local news about the blatant animal abuse. You would be demanding boycotts. You would be sledgehammering locks off cages. Do you get what I'm saying? Please go squish your toes in mud. They say the definition of insanity is repeating the same option over and over again and expecting different results. But hear me out. There's no way they'll expect me to do it again. Deep Leffen is a Twitter bot trained on r/SmashPros and tweets from professional Smash player Leffen. It randomly generates tweets based on prompts it's fed. It's probably the best account on the site. He is doing a very good job of being a convincing Smash player. HBox gave my friend a ride to a local. Incredibly, nobody was injured on the way there, except for my friend Annihilated and 14 witnesses Annihilated, and what it's already being described as the gamer goof of the century. God, could you imagine a scene in a fantasy movie or some crap where the heroes kill the main villain's prize general or some crap, and the villain pins one of their henchmen to the wall and is all like, "Who killed my second in command?" And the henchman's just like, "We don't know, sir. It was just some band of no-name adventurers." And then the camera pans over to the adventurers just like, "I've been informed that no-name brand is not commonly found outside of Canada, so let me explain that these products are what I'm referencing with this. Cola, cocoa, apple beverage, mayo de noche." Dear Marvel, I just saw your issue of Marvel Swimsuit Special 1994. It was very cool because it was 50-50 male-female. For once, someone was fair. It's usually 98% female. I'm a black female, late 20s. I want to see Thor nude. The Dan Panosian and Tom Smith picture didn't do him justice. In fact, 60% of all Thor pictures don't do him justice. Thor is truly a godsend. Please draw him much more handsome and nude in next year's issue. Thank you. Letra Bledsoe has her priorities right. Times change. People don't. The coolest part of Doge is that while they crippled medical research and cost-effective foreign aid programs, they also didn't save any money. I think one reason some tech people are unwilling to grapple with Doge's failure is that it would require acknowledging that their entire belief system about government, and in some ways broader worldview, was wrong. It turned out that you couldn't fix government by sending some good engineers to look under the hood. Our spending isn't driven by waste and fraud that you can detect with better tools. It turns out that you can't fix Social Security's finances by stopping checks to dead people because hardly any go out. Yeah, you can find some goofy foreign aid programs, but they make up a minimal amount of federal spending. If you accept those things, suddenly you have to acknowledge that politics and policy are hard because they involve difficult trade-offs, not just getting smarter people in there to do the job. I'm bored. Tell me about a time you seriously misread social cues and it made it weird. I'm not talking you too when the waiter says enjoy your food. Give me something that keeps you up at night. One time, I accidentally grabbed the Sonic worker's finger because I thought it was a straw she was handing me. I meant to ask a woman what gender her baby was, and I accidentally said, "What flavor is that baby?" Principal announced we have Monday off of school, my birthday. I jumped up and cheered before he commented that a teacher passed away overnight and her funeral would be held that day. I had just moved to NYC. Some tourists stopped me on the sidewalk sidewalk and asked for directions to the subway. I gave them directions to a Subway sandwich shop around the corner. After an interview, the hiring manager put her arm up to slide past me, and I gave her a hug. I love that I share my house with one of the most efficient apex predators millions of years of evolution could produce. I love that two of nature's most prolific machines met and were like, we should lay around and do nothing together. Now we're both fat and happy and full of meat. The hedonism of it all. Humans keeping cats and dogs as family members is like three prodigy assassins being introduced in the back of a shady nightclub, and 45 minutes later, they're 6 Crunchwrap Supremes deep, passing a smoke in the back of a shag-carpeted Volkswagen microbus rating Oreo varietals by friggability. Please do not use fake spiderweb decorations this fall. They're deadly for bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, and are even strong enough to snare an owl. Does decorative spiderwebbing pose a danger to wildlife? The classic Halloween decor can be a silent threat to furry friends if displayed unsafely. As autumn advances, leaves begin to fall from trees and a chill runs through the air, making it increasingly clear the spooky season is upon us. But as people decorate for Halloween, they may be setting up a trick rather than a treat for surrounding critters. That fake spiderwebbing commonly seen across the country every October is just as effective at trapping critters as a real web is. You guys like rebuying games, right? I mean, not like actually rebuying them, because you don't actually get to keep the games, but like, you'll give us more money for them again, right? You want Super Mario Galaxy again, right? The worst console in our history is now playable with a subscription and a paid peripheral, by the way. Please don't think about the fact that we still have legal slaves because of our demonic IP defending practices putting people in so much debt that they'll not pay it off to us in their lifetime. Gary Bowser, an old disabled man, was released from prison in 2023 following a 14th month stay after Nintendo imprisoned him for working with a third-party company that made modification chips for consoles, during which Nintendo filed a civil suit against him, with the court deciding he owed $14 million to Nintendo in damages. He'll be paying it off monthly for the rest of his life. These are my red flags for women. If she stabs me more than twice. If she has a concerning amount of ex-husbands who died on their honeymoon, like 4 or more. If Gozer the Gozerian asked me to choose the form of the destructor, and then one of my childhood crushes walks through New York City at 300 feet tall, and steps on a church. I mean, it's not the height. It's not the height. I like a climb, but like, she stepped on a church, or any building really, because legally, they're not supposed to be able to ask you about that on like your homeowners association application, but they'll ask. They'll look it up. If she doesn't exist in the same physical timeline as I am, I'm not doing that again. For some reason, the idea of a caveman stubbing his toe and going, "Oh frick, oh crap," is so funny to me. Like, people have been experiencing little agonies like getting hangnails or burning their fingers while stoking the fire for hundreds of thousands of years. A dude 40,000 years ago rolling his ankle, chasing a mammoth, and absolutely eating crap, and falling face first in front of all of his buddies, and then standing up and trying to play it off. So embarrassing. Everyone is like, "Is Gorg okay?" And Gorg stands up with mud on his face and goes, "Don't look at me right now." I hate the trope of, "I refuse to hit women, get stacked," because it's boring. But I do like the trope of someone in an RPG going, "Hey, I don't want to hit a kid, that's kind of frigged up," and the kid just obliterates them. I refuse to hit a woman. Gender discrimination, overdone, does nothing to actually empower the woman or make the guy seem nice. I refuse to hit a kid. Valid. Even funnier when the kid whips absolute butt in one go.
The boulder feels conflicted about fighting a young blind girl. The boulder is over his conflicted feelings.
Avatar, doing it right yet again. Shadows of Doubt, the detective sim, just added a mode where a snail spawns in the city and chases you down, and if it touches you, you die. Look at the friggin' art for this. Folks around here took to calling the skyscrapers of the finance district the headstones, because if you find yourself at the bottom, you're as good as dead. I leered up at them and they did nothing back. I knew 3 things about her. She was a brunette, she was dead, and I was the only person in the world that had to care, and had the window dressing of a crime of passion, but was too blunt and loveless in its The snail, crap, the snail's here, frick, where are my car keys? The snail, crap, the snail! I can't believe 1 terabyte micro SD cards are like a thing that exists. That's like crossing a line. That's alarmingly close to playing God. Where the frig are they putting it? For $100, I can put every single one of the games I have on Steam on a card that fits on my fingertip, and then drop it on my carpet and never see it ever again. What a time to be alive. Found this while browsing Japanese auction sites, and I think you should all behold the memory card slab. Someone in the QT's wondering how many gigs of storage this is. My friend, this is a grand total of 64 of God's own megabytes. Rip to Robert Redford, one of the most iconic American actors and all-time handsome dude. I remember an interview about Redford with someone who did theater with him. Redford was having a hard time with his character, and the director was like, "Your character really likes this girl, but you won't give him the time of day. Do you understand?" And he was like, "No?" This anecdote reminded me of how he was too hot for The Graduate. I interviewed hundreds, maybe thousands of men. Nichols admitted of the casting process per Vanity Fair, before his conversation with Redford turned out to be a short one. I said, "You can't play it. You can never be a loser." And Redford said, "What do you mean? Of course I can play a loser." And I said, "Okay, have you ever struck out with a girl?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And he wasn't joking. Random old Finnish folklore I recall reading. The reason you have to close someone's eyes after they die, or cover their eyes with a cloth if you can't, is because the spirit of the newly passed is still in the body, and even though it can't move the eyes anymore, it can still see. You must avoid making eye contact with a dead body, because the soul of the newly dead is scared to go alone, and is looking for someone to come with them. If you lock eyes with the corpse, you'll be the next to die. So is the second corpse still hazardous then, or are they fine since they have the first one for company? I must confess, I don't really know about the more exact details of the undead buddy system. The conversation around pregnancy termination shouldn't be, "Are you absolutely sure you want to terminate the pregnancy?" It should be, "Are you absolutely sure you want a child? You can get pregnant again, you can adopt, but you can't half-heartedly raise a child or change your mind midway through parenthood. Children are a huge responsibility, and if someone isn't 110% sure they're willing and able to do it, they shouldn't. Having a baby shouldn't be the default because of how extremely demanding and difficult parenthood is, and the irreversible damage it does to a kid to be raised by someone who didn't even fully want parenthood and wasn't prepared for that level of responsibility." Just found out the guy I've been fighting with via email over whether a matter is legal or finances responsibility is the same guy I've been chatting with in the halls. Oh my freaking god. I literally sent him an email basically being like, "You are incompetent and you are actively trying to evade responsibility." And then 4 minutes later, see him in the halls and go, "Hey girl, oh my god, how's your wife? How did that trip go? When are you going to come to lunch with us on Thursdays? Oh my god, stop avoiding us." He must think I'm crazy. I can't believe you engineered a good cop, bad cop scenario where you are both cops. Wait, which series does Miles Morales first appear in? All these different series are so confusing. Ultimate Spider-Man, in the universe of the Ultimate Imprint. It was the best of the Ultimate series. Cool. Ultimate Spider-Man 2009, Ultimate Spider-Man 2000, Cataclysm Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man, Marvel Universe Ultimate Spider-Man Spider-Verse, Ultimate Spider-Man Infinite Comics 2016, Ultimate Spider-Man Infinite Comics 2015, Marvel Universe Ultimate Spider-Man vs. the Sinister Six, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 2011, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 2009. Man, what the frig? This is the most accurate post about getting into comic books I have ever seen. My Zootopia mistake. The other night, I decided to watch Zootopia on Netflix after hearing it was a pretty good movie, and it was. I haven't laughed so hard at a film in a while. What I thought was really funny was how it was narrated as if it were some sort of Animal Planet documentary. Some of the lines spoken were so matter-of-fact, direct, obvious, etc. that I completely lost it several times. As it turns out, I accidentally turned on audio description somehow. I was actually pretty disappointed to find this out, because I think the movie becomes a lot funnier when it's turned on. Either way, funny movie. Sometimes I think about how rattlesnakes are starting to adapt to bite immediately instead of using their rattle as a warning, because this defense mechanism that says, "I'm here, I'm frightened, don't come close or I'll bite you," has instead elicited a reaction of, "Oh frig, a rattlesnake, I should kill it." So of course every snake that has the instinct to warn humans of its presence gets killed, and only the snakes that bite first and don't make themselves known get to survive. A human who's been bitten is too worried about a swelling ankle to decapitate a snake with a shovel. It's a good example of how humans make the world more dangerous for ourselves by believing that we have mastery and ownership of it. I think we have the power and importance to control the life around us down to the snakes and insects, but every animal fights for life, and no animal thinks that any human is more important than its own life. Sinking giant concrete orbs to the bottom of the ocean could store massive amounts of renewable energy. These underwater batteries could potentially store hundreds of thousands of gigawatt hours. A giant battery made of concrete and water. The concept is disarmingly simple. Picture a hollow concrete sphere on the seafloor. When excess power is available, say from a nearby offshore wind farm, it's used to pump seawater out of the sphere, creating a vacuum-like condition inside. Then, when energy is needed, a valve opens. Seawater rushes back in, driven by the crushing pressure of the ocean. As it re-enters, it spins a turbine, which generates electricity. The process is reversible and can be repeated hundreds of times per year. The US is crazy because like so many people have intense conspiracy theories about the government, like,
I think there's a secret elite group of people who control everything.
and you tell them, actually, you're not completely wrong. It's just not a secret group of people. It's a bunch of rich people and lobbyists who are doing it all out in the open. And they'll be like,
I don't think it's those people though. I prefer my racist and anti-Semitic theories.
they'll be like,
I heard there's a powerful ring of diddlers who are influencing the country.
and you'll tell them, I mean, yeah, that's what the files are about. And they'll say,
No, I'm pretty sure this has to do with the gays, actually.
Discord server for silent video game protagonists. Child Doom Guy, Link, Samus, and Master Chief are all in the server, and not one of them has ever sent a message in it. They all consider the others to be their closest friends. There's a channel where Red sends pictures of all of his Pokemon, and they all get a thumbs up emoji react from everyone else. Eventually, Link starts posting selfies in the most crazy places with monsters in the background about to hit him, or close-ups of plants and small critters. They also get a thumbs up react. Nothing else is said. The Knight from Hollow Knight is on the server. They never post or even give anything the thumbs up react except for the occasional bug-type Pokemon. One time, Link uploaded an image of a sunrise, and the Knight gave it the only thumbs down react anyone has ever gotten in the entire server. The resulting drama, consisting entirely of a single screenshot of the thumbs down react and a series of exclamation point reacts, nearly tore the server apart. Just learned about Farming Simulator. I mean, I already knew about it, but I just learned about it. Did you know that the target audience for Farming Simulator is actual real-world farmers? Because I didn't. I just assumed that farmers probably don't want to go home from a day of farming to do some presumably highly inaccurate virtual farming. Like, imagine if the target audience for Power Washing Simulator was actual professional power washers. Farming Sim gets sponsored by companies and crap to put ads in their games, but since the game is for farmers, all of the ads target farmers, advertising products that realistically only farmers will be interested in, aka John Deere tractors and crap. There's a friggin' Farming Sim esports league. Where do they play? Agriculture conventions. Not gaming conventions, agriculture conventions. There's nowhere safe anymore. People be at a restaurant or like sleeping on a plane, and you wake up and there's a photo of you sleeping on a plane online. That's some frigged up crap. You're having a private conversation at breakfast, and someone's recording it and they'll tell a gossip site about what you're talking about. That's some frigged up crap. For a generation in a time that's obsessed, and rightly so, with consent, and I say and underline and underscore and highlight rightly so, consent is hot, but why doesn't it apply to friggin' violating people's privacy and personal space? Andrew Garfield, on consent and privacy. He's right, and he should say it. It's kind of tragic how homophobia affects insecure men. Like, sometimes they want to experiment a bit. Instead of just buying a toy like a normal person, they instead shove random objects up their butt that inevitably get stuck, and then they try to get them out by themselves, which makes things worse, and then they lie to doctors about it, and like, this all leads to all kinds of extra complications, like internal damage, risk of infections, bleeding, the fall of Yugoslavia, etc. Come on, guys, just buy a toy. It's way safer and it leads to way fewer problems. Hang on, I gotta Google something. Hey, what the frig? Truly hate the way, did this person do something that actually harmed someone, and do they deserve to be unpersoned for it, are considered the same question? Do you support person is the kind of binary question that comes out of an atomized social landscape where people do not get to practice thinking about how many kinds of support there are. You can support someone being treated like a human being and not have their human rights violated, while also not supporting giving them any power over others because they've been shown to abuse it. You can also support people living their lives and doing what makes them happy, while also not supporting the idea of their lives overlapping with your own personal one because you're just not compatible, and that's best for everyone. The world isn't made up of two doorways that say perfect moral person and person who needs to be fed to piranhas. That's not really how it works. There are lots of doors. The Postal Service names their crap exactly like how a 16-year-old names angsty fanfic. Explain? Such great heights. We will become silhouettes. Recycled air. A tattered line of string. Be still my heart. There's never enough time. This place is a prison. Try and tell me literally any one of these would not fit above a short story about two wholly random men from the MCU touching each other, or possibly 12 chapters of one or more characters from a CW show being in high school while having a photogenic but terminal kind of cancer. Try. Oh my god, the Postal Service is a band. I thought okay, so I want to say in hindsight, I think I probably could have been clearer. Back when I worked at a hardware store, people would come in for concrete mix we sold in 50-pound bags, like 23 kilograms, and the cashier would ring them up, then call over the speakers that there was a quick-crete order. One of us had to go out to the concrete garage and meet the customer and load up all the bags into the vehicle, and I always worked closing shift with this guy named Bob, who had to be at least 1,000 years old, and he was so skinny and curled in on himself, he reminded me of a Brian Froud illustration, and he would be like, "Let me get it, this isn't a job for a girl," and I was like, "Well then whose job is it? Because it ain't a job for you either," and he'd be like, "Between the two of us," as if the answer was obviously him, and we're standing there like this. Has anyone else noticed how successive governments' wars on teenagers, homeless people, and other undesirables have left us with basically zero public seating? Notice how removing seating doesn't actually prevent people from sitting, it just makes them uncomfortable and makes public spaces more hostile. It doesn't actually work at controlling their behavior. By the way, keep in mind how this also more dramatically affects disabled people. Not everyone can stand for hours at a time or feasibly sit on the floor. That's a major train station in New York City, by the way, a place where people are, waiting for extended periods of time. That's why everyone is sitting. They're tired. The other day, I learned that taking a long time to fall asleep is called sleep latency, which is just the funniest thing to me, to be honest. Me, tossing and turning until 2 a.m. The lag! It's weird, because I can nap really easily, but night sleep's impossible. I have to medicate myself. Napping is easy, because your brain is connecting to the sleep server at low traffic hours for your region. When everyone is trying to get on the sleep server during high traffic hours, night in your region, the lag is at its worst, and many people can't even connect to the server at all. That's why falling asleep at night is hard. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. In my opinion, the state monitoring your private messages is basically on the same level as opening and reading physical mail, or perhaps breaking into your house to install bugs and cameras. It's way worse, actually, because traditionally, wiretapping and opening letters means the state decides that, okay, this person is a suspect. We should start monitoring their phone calls and letters now while we're investigating them. What a state backdoor on encryption as suggested by chat control and the like would mean is instead, okay, this person is a suspect. Let's retroactively search through every conversation they've ever had. It would mean the state has access to information from before the law even went into effect, and on a technological level, this could happen to anyone at any time. I cannot stress how massive this overreach is. A mom just came in so excited to find a map store because her son would love it. She tries to be coy. My son is really into maps. Real special kid. I'm like, ma'am, this is a map store. Half my customers are on the spectrum. I have a trains and transit section. You're among friends. Sir, this is a Wendy's. I have no idea why you're here for that, but this is possibly the least relevant place for you to be right now. Ma'am, this is a map store. This is an even more relevant place for you to be than you know yet. Shout out to Sherwin-Williams, the only paint company that advocates drowning the earth. Cover the earth. Sherwin-Williams, genuinely one of the most cartoonishly evil-looking logos/mottos a company has ever had. Always scared me as a little kid, lol. I love how it's not cover the earth in color or anything happy like that. It's just cover the earth, and it's a command. There's no beauty here, only the sound of a flood of paint overwhelming and erasing man. The fact that it's red too, contextually you know it's paint, but if you remove the paint can, this looks like a political cartoon by a rabid conspiracy theorist about how the global shadow government wants to drown the world in blood. The idea of the internet as a third space for co-identities, avatars, pseudonyms doesn't really exist for normies. They love selfies and IDs. The net is a purely marketing platform for their face, like them all. The fact that normies never embraced the idea that the net was a great place to have alter egos and just be free from insane societal peer pressure really is wild. Instead, they use the internet to double down and make it impossible for nonconformists to escape. I absolutely blame Facebook for this shift. Words cannot describe how freaking weird it was in the mid-2000s when there was suddenly this popular website where you were required to use your real Brickspace name and encouraged to post photos of yourself. Every single bit of standard internet safety prior then said that you should never, ever, ever do either of those. Why is Lake Superior so dangerous? I can't find anything online that will give me access. Not American. It's the largest freshwater lake on the planet by surface area. You could lose a couple of smaller countries in there and not even notice, versus Europe. On top of that, it's a northern lake, so the water never really gets warmer than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, even in the heat of summer, and it's famous for sudden violent storms that destroy ships and buildings alike. This thing has a massive body count because it's also a major shipping thoroughfare. TLDR, it wants to eat you so bad. I am pregnant, taking 10 Tylenol a day in hopes my son becomes the greatest Magic the Gathering player in the world. If you have the right mix, I call it the Goldilocks sign. If you have the right mix of autism and steroids, you are 100% guaranteed to become a world champion. And that's the thing. People are focusing on steroids, but really, as a world-class coach, you really want to attract people with autism because you can give anyone steroids. Despite our best efforts, we are yet to give anyone autism. The funniest meltdown I've ever had was in college, when I got so overstimulated that I went nonverbal, including over text. One of my friends was trying to talk me through it, but I was solely using emojis because they were easier than trying to come up with words, so he started using primarily emojis as well just to make things feel balanced. This was not the most effective strategy, until he tried to ask me, "You okay?" But the way he chose to do that was by sending tri-finger butthole, and I was so shocked by suddenly being asked if I was down to frig that I was like, "What? What did you just say to me?" And thus was verbal again. The task that generative AI has been most successful at is lowering our expectations, both of the things we read and of ourselves when we write anything for others to read. It is a fundamentally dehumanizing technology because it treats us as less than what we are, creators and apprehenders of meaning. It reduces the amount of intention in the world. Ted Chiang from Why AI Isn't Going to Make Art. I'm so glad they got Ted Chiang, a wonderful writer of science fiction and thinker about technology, in my opinion, to write this essay. My favorite line was this: generative AI appeals to people who think they can express themselves in a medium without actually working in that medium. I wish wizards were real so bad. Imagine coming out of a Walmart and seeing some guy with long robes and a big hat in the parking lot, surrounded by wacky particle effects, screaming some crap like,
"By the moon and the starlight, by the shield and the sword, I summon to me my Honda Accord,"
and then just getting into his car and driving off. So there's basically two reasons he would need to do this, and they're both funny. His magical Honda unsummoned while he was in Walmart. This means it's not even a real car, and could look like anything, and he picked or was forced somehow to pick a Honda Accord. His normal Honda was left someplace while he came to Walmart by other means, and he can teleport the car to him more easily than he can teleport himself places. I took my little brother, autistic, mostly nonverbal, out, and he was using his voice keyboard to tell me something, and this little boy, maybe 4 or 5, heard him and asked me, "Is he a robot?" I tried to explain to him that no, he isn't a robot, he just communicates differently, but my darling brother was in the background, max volume, "I am robot, I am robot, I am robot, I am robot." My little brother insisted if I was going to post about him, he wanted a cut of the profits. When I explained to him that Tumblr isn't monetized, and is pretty pointless, he and my older brother pointed out that he'd still be bringing me fame and notoriety if the post got big, so we agreed. If the post hit 10k notes, which seemed extremely far-fetched and silly at the time, I'd take my little brother out for sushi, his favorite food, and let him eat as much as he wants. I guess God wanted the little robot to enjoy some sushi. Huntington's disease successfully treated for first time. One of the most devastating diseases finally has a treatment that can slow its progression. One day, I'll write about what it's like to grow up knowing you might have a terminal, incurable illness, and not be allowed to test yourself because it's such a serious decision. They don't want it hanging over you until you're an adult, as if it doesn't hang over you as you witness a parent die and know you've got 50% chance of inheriting the same illness, as do your siblings. One day, I'll talk about how in the fear of traumatizing children with the knowledge they might be incurably terminally ill, they also took away their right to decide over their bodies to a degree that is traumatizing. One day, but today, I'm going to cry because it's over. While sailing the Mediterranean Sea in 1962, the American aircraft carrier USS Independence flashed the Amerigo Vespucci with the light signal asking, "Who are you?" The full-rigged ship answered, "Training ship Amerigo Vespucci, Italian Navy." The Independence replied, "You are the most beautiful ship in the world." Yuri shipping. In 2022, the Amerigo Vespucci sailed by the American aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush, which saluted the ship and commented, "You are still, after 60 years, the most beautiful ship in the world." Update for everyone else who wants to see better pics of the most beautiful ship in the world. When the Patriot Act was passed, libraries got requests for patrons' borrowing history. We were prohibited from disclosing those requests. We deleted and shredded those records and stopped tracking reading history for that reason. Also, we figured, what's the fun in just telling them there's nothing? What the feds always forget is that librarians love weaponizing bureaucracy for a good cause. We developed a compliance policy just for the Patriot Act. We added a Patriot Act compliance officer to our org chart. This person was a real employee. Well, was. The Office of Patriot Act Compliance would be assigned to whichever employee had just left our library. And gosh, it's just such a mess around here, you know? The library where I worked at the time did not successfully fulfill a single Patriot Act request. Not that this is relevant to the current situation. I assure you this is a random memory that popped into my head with zero prompting. DNA analyses taken in 2003 are claimed to have revealed traces of blood from at least 4 other people on his gear, 1 from his knife, 2 from a single arrowhead in his quiver, and a 4th from his coat. Interpretations of these findings are that Utsi killed 2 people with the same arrow and was able to retrieve it on both occasions, and the blood on his coat was from a wounded comrade he may have carried over his back. Utsi's posture in death, frozen body, face down, left arm bent across the chest, could support a hypothesis that before death occurred and rigor mortis set in, the Iceman was turned onto his belly in the effort to remove the arrow shaft. Actually matters. mad respect. He was a machine. Nature is supposed to contain stumps and logs. They are ecosystems, and getting rid of them is pointlessly destructive. Even after a tree dies, it's not finished enriching the soil and providing habitat to other plants, fungi, and animals. Tree stumps are an important part of the ecosystem. Instead of getting rid of them, consider making them part of your garden. Save money on stump removal by not removing stumps. Let them decompose and return to nature, sheltering and nourishing living creatures. This account is pro-bird and pro-ecosystem, and therefore, this account is pro-stump. Why wearing too much makeup harms a woman's leadership chances. Dr. Christopher Watkins of Abertay's Division of Psychology said it was possible women wearing makeup were seen as more frivolous in the workplace, even though previous work, which suggests makeup makes women more dominant. The findings are in contrast to Harvard University research in 2016, which found that women who wore makeup were deemed more competent at their jobs and more likely to be promoted. Great news, guys! So if women wear makeup at work, we're frivolous, and it harms our leadership chances. But if we don't wear makeup, we're being unprofessional and are deemed less competent. So we just need to think of a way for women to not have faces, and we're all set. T-Pain demands gentlemen's clubs turn all TVs to Cartoon Network when he enters. In my defense, if I'm dropping thousands of dollars to see open hoo-has and butts, I don't really want my background entertainment to be friggin' baseball. Also, I only have them change the TVs that are in my private section, but whoever wrote this article thought it would sound better if they made it sound like I force everyone in the club to watch kid cartoons in an adult setting, which brings me to my last point. Gentlemen's club times are also Adult Swim times, so Cartoon Network is just the channel, and Adult Swim is the lineup. Hope that clears everything up. I'm not a butthead. This headline is just another clickbaity thing gone viral. Is it just me, or is NASA weirdly aggressive in their article about black holes? Could a black hole destroy Earth? Black holes do not go around in space eating stars, moons, and planets. Earth will not fall into a black hole because no black hole is close enough to the solar system for Earth to do that. Even if a black hole the same mass as the sun were to take the place of the sun, Earth still wouldn't fall in. The black hole would have the same gravity as the sun. Earth and the other planets would orbit the black hole as they orbit the sun now. The sun will never turn into a black hole. The sun is not a big enough star to make a black hole. Black Neon Tetras committed credit card fraud during a 2023 live stream by Muteki Maru channel on YouTube. The owner was using motion tracking software to turn the fish's movements into Nintendo Switch inputs, letting them play video games. In 2020, the fish beat Pokemon Sapphire after 3,195 hours, a feat that takes about 30 hours for a typical human. On January 14th, 2023, Pokemon Violet crashed at 1,144 hours, giving the fish free access to the main menu. They entered inputs that opened Nintendo eShop, added 500 yen to their owner's account, and exposed his credit card details on the live stream. Muteki Maru later requested a refund of the 500 yen from Nintendo. Friend is an AI wearable device designed to provide companionship plus emotional support, i.e. replace human friendships. It's literally an AI chatbot that you wear around your neck. Friend just paid for the largest ad campaign in New York City subway history, and every single poster was vandalized. It literally looks like some of the most beautiful art you've ever seen. Kylie Robinson and Boone Ashworth of Wired both wore these stupid things for a couple weeks, and reported the kind of experiences one might expect to have with an interactive AI device invented by a 22-year-old tech bro. I hate my friend. The chatbot-enabled friend necklace eavesdrops on your life and provides a running commentary. The more I get back into doing creative stuff, the more I understand that one Fujimoto quote. There weren't any prep schools near me, so I went to an art class with a lot of old people, where I did oil paintings in the corner. There were good artists there, so I decided if I didn't get better than them in 4 years, I would kill them. And since I didn't want to go on the run if I was a good artist, I just kept drawing. Interview with Hiroaki Samura. I also like domineering and irrational women. For anyone wondering about the second quote, I also like domineering and irrational women. In college, there was a girl who was mean to me, and then one day at school my bicycle had fallen over. I was wondering what happened when she said, "I knocked your bike over, ha ha ha." I was so happy. Love the r/bald subreddit. Just so many guys who are balding and embrace going full bald and posting before and after pictures, and the after pictures are always so glowing and wonderful and they look so great, and all the comments are like, "Hell yeah, brother, welcome to the club. You look 10 years younger and so much more confident now." I love it so much. I'm unironically so happy for these guys. Very handsome lads. Hair loss is such a source of insecurity for so many people because of how hair is so closely linked to identity and gender expression, and drastic changes to one's appearance are very scary to go through with, and I'm just very glad all these guys get to feel good and free and be in the bald club. When I was a kid, I had an old TV in my room that would always turn to unwatchable static in the middle of shows. But one night, my sister and I were watching Naruto, and every time Kakashi was on screen, the static cleared. So we were like, ha ha ha, the TV loves Kakashi. I had a Kakashi bookmark, so we held it up against the screen as a joke, but the static actually cleared up. Mystified, we tried different bookmarks and objects with the same plastic material, but nothing else worked. Only the Kakashi bookmark. We ended up taping it to the corner of the screen, and it stayed there for 11 years until we moved out. When I was older, people would be like, can you move the bookmark off the screen? Because it did sort of block a bit of the view, but I would demonstrate the static issue and everyone was always just like, huh, what the hell? Well, alright, no explanation, but thanks Kakashi. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to get on a fire truck. I'm tempted to just walk my grown butt over to a fire station and just ask. Oh my god, it worked! I learned so much about fire trucks today, and I feel like I have to tell someone. Did you know there's different kinds of trucks with different uses? This one doesn't even have a fire hose. It's a big ladder so they can cut holes in roofs to let out smoke. Look at their saws! Best part about the fire truck pic is that one of the firefighters offered to take it from me because I was just taking selfies at first. I love him. I hope he's having a great day. Why is it legal to bar people from just any random job for having a criminal record? Dude gets 1 DUI and can't bag groceries? Can't stock shelves or sell dog food? What the frig, bruh? If that's even an option, then why aren't we saving that for like bus drivers and diamond retailers and hospice nurses? Where is the order of priority here? If the worst thing Craig has ever been caught for was possession of Zaza in 2015, I'm still pretty okay with him being assistant manager at a mattress store, actually. I want people in the US to know that this is not the law in most countries of the world. In Germany, of course you can get a job after you have served your sentence in jail. There are even programs to help you find a job. If you aren't even in jail but paid a fine, in most cases you just keep your job. Me. Okay, improv class, somebody give me an occupation. Class, dentist. Me. Okay, so in this scene, you're going to be a dentist. Child 1,
Why did you steal my teeth?
Child 2, on the floor, sobbing.
I'm so sorry. I sold them on the dark web. I'm in so much debt from medical college.
What the frig are the kids even getting out of this class if they're already this funny? I ask myself this every day. 12-year-olds really like taxes, debt, and divorce as topics of distress and improvisation for some reason. Nothing slapped my crap back into place like someone pointing out that the genius gifted child with so much potential who got burnout and mental illness is just the nerd equivalent to the jock could have been a pro at sports ball if it wasn't for the injury. Yeah, and in both cases, it's generally caused by people who should know better, pushing them past what their body/brain can safely do. No, maybe you would have been a genius or a professional athlete or whatever, but the fact is, without that external pressure, you certainly wouldn't be 30 and in chronic pain from a torn ligament that never healed right either. Guys, this is literally the first time I've seen this meme with the artist signature not blurred or cropped. So I looked him up and learned that he's Genildo Ronchi, a 56-year-old Brazilian artist. He created this on his birthday in 2013 after changing his usual seat in his bus ride home and realizing he had a much nicer scenery to look at from the sunset-facing seat. Genildo said in an interview that he's happy to see his piece doing the rounds on the web, but adds, the piece being turned into a meme is great for sharing my work, but it's important that you keep my signature.